Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another book review here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about A Restless Truth. I don't know, there's no intro music for these. I should make some intro music. I was sent a lovely review copy of this book from the kind people over at Tor, and they asked if I wanted to be part of their blog tour, reviewer tour kind of thing, and I said yes, of course I do. So I will link somewhere where there is all of the information for all the other people in the tour, somewhere if you would like to check that out. But if I've forgotten to do that, or somehow you can't make anything work, it's probably on Twitter. Quick disclaimers before we start. I was sent a copy of this book, regardless of where books come from. Nobody's paying me to talk about books, and all opinions are my own. I'll keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. However, if you haven't already read A Marvelous Light, some of this might be spoilers for that, so bear that in mind. And I'll link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any content warnings. This came out on the 10th of November this year and is the sequel to A Marvelous Light, which, if you'll remember, was one of my absolute favourite books of 2021. I loved A Marvelous Light, I thought it was wonderful, bought a hardback copy. I never actually filmed a full review for A Marvelous Light, despite having really enjoyed it, so I guess count this as an amalgamation of my thoughts on the two, but we are going to be focusing in on A Restless Truth. I don't really know what happened there. I was convinced I'd filmed one. Maybe I filmed one and never posted it. Just there. Being happy and nice and gay. The reason I wanted to pick up the sequel is both because I love the first book and because it got described to me as lesbian knives out on a boat, which is just a fantastic description. What do we mean by that? We mean lesbian murder mystery on a boat, which to be honest would have appealed to me in the exact same way. So, our main character Maud, who is a character in the first book, but a side character, now has her own book. She is setting off from America back to England with an old lady companion who is relevant to the plot of the overarching books. Unfortunately, right at the start of the journey, that lady dies. Is murdered, in fact. I'll just read you the middle paragraph of the blurb. Maud gladly sets forth into the unknown. However, she didn't expect the unknown to involve a dead body, a disrespectful parrot, and the dangerously outrageous Violet Debenham. Violet is everything Maud was trained to disgust, yet can't help but desire. A magician, an actress, and a magnet for scandal. It's a murder mystery. You can imagine the structure of this book, but we also have a lovely lesbian romance within this. I don't know if that's the words the characters would use, but since it was being marketed by the author as lesbian knives out on a boat, I want to use that word to honour that, but sapphic would work as well. Reasons I enjoyed this: I think it's a really good story. I like a murder mystery. I enjoyed it. I like a magical murder mystery even more. And one of the great things about this series is it is another world where the magical is laid on top of the mundane, so they have that added element of not being able to reveal that they have magic the whole time, which I very much enjoyed. I liked getting to experience this, you know, kind of cruise ship life, which is always a bit fun. Just the setting as a whole is very cool, in both books, but in this particular because we have this really isolated setting where there are a limited number of characters. It just makes it easy to understand and enjoyable. If you're a person who already knows you like that kind of murder mystery, that kind of Agatha Christie kind of affair, this will probably work for you. The romance is also really lovely. I actually very much enjoyed it. I think it's a really interesting one in terms of where it begins and where it ends up, and I don't want to spoil that for you, but it is just a very lovely kind of coming of age exploration of self and learning to communicate well, which I'm always here for. And what I liked about it in particular was the way that it ended, but I can't get into that here because I said this was going to be spoiler-free. Maud as a main character and Violet as a side main character. I think the story is much more focused on Maud than Violet, but they do both get point of view chapters. I really loved Maud. I think she's great. I want to be her. I am her in many ways, and I just have a lot of feelings about her. I hope that she pops up in future books. I don't know if she will. The first book's main characters didn't appear in this except as mentions and asides, so I don't know if she'll come back, but I hope so. I would like more Maud, please. But Violet as well is a really interesting character and a really great romantic interest and a really great character in her own right, aside from being a romantic interest, and just has a lot of things going on that gave me a lot of feelings, but also is an actress and generally is a bit scandalous, and that's always fun. And a whole host of other characters besides that I won't get into here, but trust and believe they are good characters. I think what's interesting is that Freya Marske is obviously writing about a period of time where there is a lot of prejudice, and you know, these are queer characters who are having to hide their identities in both books. It is not a this is totally fine for us to do because magicians can just be gay, which I was kind of expecting, but it doesn't happen that way. Which I think would have been easier to write, right? Like to just go, we don't have that prejudice because we're wizards, but then I suppose that's opening a can of worms. But it also, a tiny bit gets into the racism of the period as well. It doesn't really engage with that, and I don't think that's what the book is trying to do, but if you're looking for a book that does that, this is not that story for you. And maybe something like, oh, what's it called? Come Up and Serve Cold tried to engage with that a little bit. I think there are other examples certainly out there. However, this book did start to engage with those things a little bit more and maybe kind of reference how women at the time could and did have life partners who were just their lady companions and such. So I think that's interesting. But if you're looking for a big, like, let's dig into the history of this, that's not what this series is. I will also say that this took me a reread to fully engage with. I think on reflection that has to do with how I read it. So I read it originally in physical form, this physical arc, which was fine, but I read kind of 100 pages and then stopped for about a month and then picked it up again. And after that I got approved for the audiobook, so I did the audiobook afterwards. I would highly recommend the audiobook. I think it's really good fun. However, that does have that problem of when you're listening to an audiobook on the train and it gets to a very steamy scene and you just have to hope that your headphones are noise cancelling enough that no one can hear you. That was interesting. So I'm pretty certain that had to do with the fact that I picked it up, put it down again, picked it up again, given that when I did it via audiobook, it was all much clearer and made much more sense, and I had a better time and it felt better paced. But make of that what you will, your mileage may vary. The other thing I'll mention is that you do have to have read A Marvellous Light to pick this up, so elements of it aren't going to make sense. Do you need to do a reread? I don't think so. I think this is separate enough and gives you enough information that you need that you can jump straight into this without a reread. I'm not saying it wouldn't have been beneficial for me to do that. I might have had a bit more context for some of the antagonists of the story, but I don't think it was essential for my understanding of the book. So if you want to jump right in with A Restless Truth, you can, if you've already read A Marvellous Light at some point in the past. I think overall, when I think about it, a lot of the things this book does, I've seen in other things. That's not a criticism. It's a thing that I've seen in a lot of other books that I really love. And I think that this book really encapsulates what a comfort read is to me, because it kind of has all of the things that I love. It has sapphic relationships, it has roguish characters, it's a murder mystery, it's on a boat. I love the ocean, you know this about me. So for me, while I think A Marvellous Light is a slightly stronger book overall, this has a lot more of my comfort read tropes, and I will definitely be picking both of them up again in the future. I think this has a lot of rereadability as a series, and I'm really excited for the next book to come out and for things to expand even further and to meet new characters and to have a great time. I will probably be purchasing a hardback copy of this as well because I cannot be contained. In terms of other things you might want to read, I mentioned Come Up and Serve Cold. The other thing that I have on my TBR at the moment is The Monsters We Defy. I got sent this for review and I haven't read it yet, but I feel like it's going to have some similarities, and that this, I believe, is Gatsby-esque. Magic, mystery and mayhem in a deliciously complex historical fantasy, so perhaps this. I'm trying to think what else I've read recently that has had elements of this in it. If you want magical murder mysteries but you want to lean more into the paranormal side of things, the Paranormal Investigations series by Laura Lasco is one of my favourites. I have a review video up for that series. Fantastic, really, really good read. I also really enjoyed the first book in the Arcadia project, which is called Borderline, which is a very, very heavy topic, but it has that murder mystery, magical world, mundane world kind of thing, but set in Hollywood, which is very, very interesting. I've read a fair few murder mystery fantasy books in my time. I think those are the ones that have stuck with me the most. If you like any of those, you might like this, or indeed, if you liked this, you might like some of those. I think they're missing some of the historical elements that this book has. So maybe something like The Chosen and the Beautiful by Niveau. That's another Gatsby-esque book. So perhaps looking a little bit later. I think this is a tiny bit earlier. Have you read this? Do you have plans to? I'm sorry this isn't a more coherent video. I kind of started making it thinking I had already reviewed A Marvellous Light, and it turns out I haven't. So it's weird reviewing a sequel when you haven't reviewed book one. Maybe when the next book is out, I'll do a big reread of all three, and we'll talk about all three together. How does that sound? Have you read these? Do you have plans to? Let me know down in the comments below. While you are commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. Be sure to check out all of the people on the tour for this book. They are all excellent human beings, or at least the ones of them that I know definitely are. I'll have that linked below. My Patreon is also linked below. That's a place where people can support the channel and get early access to videos and bonus content. If you'd like to check that out, you can click on that link. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. I need to take the sticker off this. Oh, never mind. Don't pull the cable out.